The first flames, the colony of Vera was quiet under a blue sky. Children played in the dust of the mining streets, traders shouted prices at the market, and life felt normal, peaceful, almost fragile. Then the shadow came. Above the sky, a dark wall spread. The alien fleet appeared like knives cutting the light. No warning, no words, only fire. The first strikes fell on the outer towers. Explosions rolled across the colony. People screamed and ran. Mothers pulled children into shelters. Soldiers tried to raise the colony's defense grid, but it flickered and died. The aliens had already disabled it. From orbit, the invaders laughed. Their leader's voice echoed in their warship. Weak humans, easy prey, easy plunder. They launched burning dropships that cut through the clouds, like spears of fire. On the ground, Commander Hale, one of the few officers left, shouted orders, his voice raw with desperation. Form lines, protect the civilians, get the transmitters working. We need to call Earth now. But his eyes showed fear. He knew Earth might be too far, too slow. The first alien squads marched through the smoke, tall, armored, their weapons glowing with green fire. They burned through doors and dragged families into the streets, some as prisoners, others left dead. Their cruelty was fast, practiced. Boy named Eli watched from a crack in the rubble. His small hands shaking, his mother pressed him close, whispering, "Stay quiet, don't move." They watched their neighbor's house collapse under alien fire, watched the sky burn red. A desperate signal crackled through the static. One of the engineers had managed to power the old emergency beacon. The sound echoed across the stars. A single cry. "To any human ships, Vera colony is under attack, we need help." But no answer came. The alien commander received word of the signal and laughed again. "Let them scream. No one will hear them. No one will save them." He ordered his fleet to spread fire across the colony, to erase every trace of resistance. Commander Hale tried to hold the line. Human soldiers fired back, their rifles glowing with blue rounds, but against alien armor it was like rain against steel. One by one, defenders fell, their screams lost under thunder, yet Hale refused to break. Even as blood filled the streets, he shouted to the last group of fighters, "Keep the signal alive. If we fall, the galaxy must know what they did here." Above the battlefield, the aliens noticed strange flickers in the sky, unnatural waves of light bending around the horizon. Some thought it was interference from their own weapons, but others, older, colder, whispered a warning to their commander. "Do not anger Earth too deeply. There are stories," but the commander ignored them. "Stories are for children. Fire will silence all." The colony burned, thousands died, but the beacon did not stop. Its pulse carried across the void, touching deep sensors buried in forgotten places. On Earth, far below the oceans, inside ancient black vaults no one dared to speak of, machines older than the current age began to stir. Eyes like molten fire opened in the dark, wings of metal unfolded. Claws scraped against stone, and a sound shook the deep chambers. A roar like thunder held back for centuries. But on Vera, the colonists did not know yet. They only knew fear. Eli's mother held him tighter as alien. Soldiers searched the ruins, boots striking closer, closer. Commander Hale dragged himself from the rubble, bleeding, barely alive but still crawling toward the transmitter, refusing to let the signal die. In orbit, the alien fleet prepared to leave, their ships loaded with stolen resources and prisoners. The commander sneered, "Earth is weak. Humanity is broken. This is only the beginning." And yet, far away, the signal had already been heard. Not by the Council, not by human fleets, but by something older, something Earth had hidden. The dragons, the galaxy had forgotten them. But Earth had not. The roar that answered from the depths was not human, not machine. It was something between. It was hunger, fury, and promise. And it was coming. The colony burned that night, but the flames that rose from it would soon spread across the stars, carried not by human ships but by dragons that slept no longer. The aliens thought they had crushed a weak world, but instead, they had lit the first fire of their own destruction. Shadows over Earth, on Earth. Life seemed calm on the surface. Cities glowed with light. Ships crossed the skies. People walked, With hope and noise, yet deep inside hidden chambers, alarms whispered of the signal from Vera. Few humans knew of the old networks buried under oceans and mountains. These were not normal satellites or defense grids. They were watchers, listening posts designed for one purpose: to guard against a call that no one wanted to hear. In the capital, leaders sat around a silent table. The message from Vera played again and again, voices breaking with fear. To any human ships, we are under attack. The colony is burning, help us. The room was cold, no one spoke until Admiral Riker leaned forward, his face hard with scars of past wars. It has begun. They touched our colonies. Now the choice is no longer ours. Some tried to argue, we cannot reveal them. The galaxy will unite against us if they know. But Riker shook his head. They already struck first. We either show our strength or die as prey. Meanwhile, whispers spread across the Galactic Council. Alien delegates laughed over human weakness. One counselor mocked, "They beg for help, but who will come? Who listens to pray?" Another added, "We warned them not to expand too far. Now their colonies burn, it is their own fault." But in the corner of the chamber, a quiet voice from an old species spoke. "Do not speak too loudly, there are rumors, legends. If the dragons wake, none of us will laugh." The others scoffed, waving. Claws and hands. Dragons are myths, machines from old wars, nothing more. Yet unease settled in the hall because myths have power when fear already waits in the heart. Back on Earth, in a hidden hangar deep beneath a mountain, a man named Jonas walked among shadows. He was not a soldier now, but once he had been chosen long ago, his hand still bore the mark that linked him to a dragon. He stopped when the floor rumbled, when the air shook, and in the darkness the dragon's eye opened, red like fire, looking straight at him, as if it had never forgotten. Jonas whispered, his voice trembling, "So, it is time." The dragon answered not with words, but with a low growl that echoed in his bones, a reminder of the bond they had sworn to keep hidden until the day humanity truly needed them. Across the seas, other vaults opened, each with a roar of steel and thunder. Pilots were summoned, some old, some young, all bound by bloodlines carrying forgotten codes. Families who thought their history was ordinary suddenly learned the truth. They had been keepers of fire all along. The galaxy did not see it yet. They only saw Earth's silence. The Council mocked in speeches. Alien fleets prepared for more strikes, believing humanity broken. But those who had once faced Earth in older wars remembered, their voices quieter, their eyes darker. Do not mistake their silence for weakness when Earth grows quiet. Storms follow. Admiral Riker stood before a map of the stars. The red lights marked the fallen colonies, his jaw clenched. For centuries we swore never to use them again, but the time for peace is over. Awaken all dragons. Messages were sent, sealed. Orders spread across Earth. Secret doors opened in deserts, jungles, and under oceans. Massive shapes stirred, some like serpents of steel, others like beasts with wings and claws, their bodies alive with living fire and machine. Meanwhile, survivors from Vera drifted in damaged ships, carrying wounds, carrying fear. One child clutched his mother's hand and whispered, "The dragons will save us, won't they?" She wanted to comfort him, but even she did not know if the legends were truth or dream. Far beyond Earth, alien scouts intercepted strange energy readings from Sol System. The reports were brought to their warlord. He stared at the data with narrowed eyes. What is this? Heat surges from beneath the planet, weapon systems unlike anything seen. His second-in-command laughed. Perhaps their planet shakes with fear. But the warlord did not laugh, for in the back of his mind, he remembered old words carved on ruined walls from ancient wars. Warnings written in blood. Do not wake the dragons of Earth on Earth's surface. Storms formed as vaults split open. Lightning cracked the skies, crowds gathered, seeing shadows of massive wings stretching in the clouds. Children pointed, soldiers saluted, and elders wept, because the legends they had buried were no longer legends. Jonas climbed into the heart of his dragon. The cockpit was alive. Veins of light spread across his arms, binding human and machine together. The dragon's voice echoed inside his skull. deep and powerful, hunt. And for the first time in centuries, the Earth roared back at the galaxy, not with words, but with dragons rising. The awakening, deep under the crust of Earth, vaults that had been sealed for centuries now groaned open. The sound was like thunder rolling through stone, and from within came the first sparks of fire. The dragons were not machines in the simple sense. They were living war forms, creations older than most galactic empires, built by human hands but shaped with something more, something alive. Each dragon pulsed with a strange energy, not just circuits and metal, but veins that glowed like molten rivers, hearts that beat like drums, and eyes that shone like suns behind steel. Jonas stood at the edge of his dragon's chamber, his breath shaking as the massive creature lowered its head. The glow of its eyes burned straight into him. A connection, older than memory, flared alive. He reached forward, his hand trembling, and when his palm touched the scaled armor, fire raced across his veins, not burning him, but binding him. The dragon spoke in his mind, not with words, but with weight. A voice that pressed against his soul. You are mine, and I am yours. Across the planet. Others felt the same bond awaken, pilots who had lived normal lives suddenly drawn to secret vaults by dreams and whispers. A woman named Arya, a teacher in the mountain towns, woke from sleep with her skin glowing faintly. Her grandmother handed her an old pendant with shaking hands and whispered, "It is your time, child. You carry the bloodline." By dawn, she stood in front of a dragon with wings folded like mountains, its roar shattering the silence of her valley. The awakening was not quiet. The earth itself seemed to tremble. Lightning storms gathered over vaults. Oceans surged against coasts. Animals grew restless, as if the world itself remembered the pact it had once made with these guardians. In space, satellites picked up the energy spikes. Alarms spread through alien fleets. Reports reached commanders who scoffed at first, then frowned when the readings grew stronger, one report said. Power levels beyond Dreadnought class detected from Sol. Another read, organic machine fusion signatures impossible to classify. Still, their leaders laughed. Human tricks, nothing more. Their colonies burn, they cannot fight back. But not all believed. In the shadows of the Galactic Council chamber, an elder species, the Veirathi, whispered among themselves. The legends are true, they are waking, one alien delegate scoffed. Legends are dust. But the elder answered, dust can still choke the living. On Earth, Admiral Riker walked the hidden command center beneath the oceans. His officers reported, dragon after dragon rising, pilots joining, systems linking. Status! He barked, his voice steady though his heart pounded. A young officer replied, 17 dragons confirmed active, 5 more stirring. Old bonds are reawakening, sir. Riker closed his eyes for a moment, then opened them with iron resolve. Then the hunt begins soon. The dragons themselves moved with hunger. Their massive wings stretched in caverns until rock shattered. Fire leaked from their jaws as they tasted air after centuries of silence. They were not mindless. Each one had a personality, some cold and calculating, others fierce and wild, but all of them burned with the same purpose, to defend humanity and to destroy those who threatened it. Jonas climbed into the cockpit hidden in the dragon's chest. The interface was not mechanical buttons or screens, it was alive. Veins of light spread from the walls and sank into his arms. He gasped as memories not his own filled his mind. Visions of past wars, of dragons burning fleets, of galaxies screaming under their fire. His dragon's voice came again, clearer this time. They struck your people, now we strike theirs. Far from Earth, survivors of Vera floated in a crippled freighter, hiding among asteroids. The child Eli looked out of a broken window. Stars cold and silent, he whispered, no one is coming. But in his dreams, he began to see shapes of fire with wings stretching across the night. The alien fleet that had burned Vera prepared for their next target, a mining colony near the star Talon. The commander grinned, his ships armed, his soldiers eager. Suddenly, alarms shrieked through his vessel. Scouts reported massive signatures approaching, not from known warp routes, but tearing directly through slipstreams. Then the first shadow appeared, a dragon ripping out of the void, its wings folding like storms, its eyes glowing brighter than suns. The alien commander staggered back, his voice shaking. That is no ship. And before his fleet could fire, the dragon opened its jaws and released a storm of plasma that swallowed a cruiser whole, the first kill of the awakening. Back on Earth, Riker received the report. His lips tightened, his voice steady. The galaxy wanted war, now they will have it, but it will not be on our graves, it will be on theirs. The dragons had awoken, and the hunt had begun. The hunt begins. The stars over Talon's system burned bright. But soon they would burn with fire, not from suns, but from dragons. Alien warships held position above the mining colony, their commander confident, their weapons primed, their voices filled with arrogance. We will strike this colony as we struck Vera, the commander declared. Humanity will learn its place as prey. But the words had barely left his lips when alarms shrieked through his bridge, unknown signatures cutting into the system. At first, the crew believed it to be human rescue ships, small and weak. But when the shadows emerged from slipspace, every alien froze. They were not ships, not in any form known. Their shapes moved like beasts, wings stretching wider than cruisers, eyes glowing like molten suns, scales gleaming like black steel. Alive with fire, the dragons had come. The first dragon roared. The sound carried not through air but through comms, shaking every alien mind that heard it. Some clutched their heads, others dropped weapons, fear crawling into their bones. Then, fire came. Plasma hotter than any reactor burst from the dragon's throat, engulfing an entire frigate. The ship melted, its screams echoing through comms before silence claimed it. On the colony below, miners and families looked up at the sky, expecting death. Instead, they saw it rain upon their enemies, the dragons tearing through alien fleets like predators in a field of prey. Children cheered, voices rising with hope. They came, the legends came. Jonas inside his dragon felt every motion, his body one with the creature. He leaned forward and the dragon dove, claws slicing through an enemy destroyer, tearing metal as if it were paper. The screams of the aliens filled his mind, but he did not falter, for behind him lay the burned ruins of Vera. Behind him lay the faces of the dead. He whispered, "For them." And the dragon roared in answer. Arya's dragon swept wide across the battlefield, her wings scattering flares of fire. She moved fast, weaving between enemy torpedoes, then slamming her dragon's tail into a cruiser, snapping its spine. The ship split apart and burned. "Her," voice whispered inside the bond, "we will never hide again." And her dragon's laughter shook the stars, the alien commander shouted. "Form ranks, destroy them, they are only machines." But his crew saw otherwise. The dragons adapted to every strike. Weapons meant for fleets failed to track them, missiles were swallowed in plasma storms, and beams of energy bent against the scales of living steel. What once was fleet discipline collapsed into panic. Some ships broke formation. Others tried to flee, but dragons hunted faster than any warp drive. One dragon slammed into a fleeing frigate, claws digging deep, wings folding as it dragged the ship into the atmosphere below. The sky turned red, as both tumbled, and when the flames cleared, only the dragon remained, flying upward, victorious. On Earth, Admiral Riker watched the battle feed from hidden observers. His officers gasped as each kill came in. "Sir, the aliens are breaking. They cannot withstand them." Riker's face remained cold, his voice heavy. "Good. Let the galaxy watch. Let them understand what happens when they strike at us." In the Galactic Council chamber, the footage spread fast. Alien leaders stared at screens showing dragons burning fleets. One delegate whispered, "This cannot be real. These things were myths." Another said, "If they exist, then humanity is no prey. Humanity is a storm." Fear gripped the council, voices once mocking, now trembling. But it was already too late. The hunt had begun on the battlefield. The alien commander realized his mistake. He tried to retreat, shouting, "Pull back, retreat, retreat." But a massive shadow fell over his ship. Jonas's dragon locked eyes with him through the glass of his bridge. The commander's breath caught, his voice shaking. What are you?" Jonas answered through comms, his voice steady. filled with fire. The last thing you will ever see. The dragon opened its jaws, and the flagship burned to ash. The colony cheered. The miners raised their fists. Survivors cried with joy. For the first time since the attacks, they believed humanity could fight back. But Jonas did not cheer, nor did Arya, nor any of the pilots, for they knew this was not the end. This was only the beginning of the hunt. The dragons circled the sky, wings spread, roars echoing across the system, and in every roar was a promise. Humanity would never bow again, and those who struck human colonies would never escape. Fire across the stars. The Talon system was only the beginning. Once the dragons tasted blood, they did not rest. They hunted. From colony to colony, from outpost to outpost, the dragons slipped through slipstreams faster than fleets, their wings cutting through the void, their fire leaving trails of burning wreckage across the stars. The galaxy had never seen war like this, not from humans, not from anyone. Entire alien task forces vanished in hours. Fleets that once took pride in their numbers were torn apart like prey in the dark. One dragon would strike from above, breathing plasma that melted hulls, while another swept low, claws tearing ships in half. Together they moved like a pack. Not random, not wild, but precise, as if every motion had been practiced for centuries. Jonas felt it in his blood. Every battle making the bond deeper. He no longer moved his dragon, the dragon moved him. Together they were one, predator and hunter. He whispered during one kill, "We are not fighting for Earth alone, we are fighting for every flame they tried to steal from us." And the dragon's voice answered, a low growl, "Yes, and we will take back everything they tried to claim." In the mining world of Koresh, alien commanders thought themselves safe. Their fleet circled the skies, confident that the humans could not reach so far so soon. But when the ground shook and shadows covered the sun, the people of Koresh looked up and saw them. Dragons descending, fire spilling from their jaws, wings blocking the light. By nightfall, the alien fleet was gone, burned to silence, and the survivors whispered the same phrase again and again. The dragons came. Arya's dragon grew fiercer with each hunt. Her voice merged with its laughter. She no longer feared the galaxy, she now pitied it. One night she sat in her cockpit watching wreckage float around her. She whispered to herself, "They thought we were weak. They thought we would beg. Now look at them, running like insects." Her dragon's eyes glowed in agreement. This is only the beginning. They struck the colonies. Now we burn their empires. News spread faster than fire. Rumors whispered in alien marketplaces. Stories told in hushed tones in council halls. "They are alive, not machines," one said. "No fleet can stop them," another whispered. Others told darker tales. One dragon destroyed 3 cruisers with a single roar. Children among alien worlds drew pictures of black wings and red eyes. Nightmares spreading faster than fact. The Galactic Council could not hide the truth anymore. Recordings of dragons hunting filled the networks. Every citizen of the galaxy had seen them now. One counselor shouted, "Humanity has unleashed monsters. If we do nothing, they will tear us all apart." But another argued, "If we unite against them, will we not provoke them further? What if there are more we have not seen?" And in the silence that followed, one voice spoke, trembling, "If the dragons are awake, then the galaxy has already changed. There is no going back." Meanwhile, survivors of Vera, drifting still in their broken freighter, received a message across the dark. The screen lit with static, then a human voice came through. "This is Commander Hale to all survivors. Hold on, we are coming for you." Eli's eyes widened. He shouted, "They heard us, they are coming." But the voice that followed was not only human, it carried an undertone, a growl behind the words, as if the dragon itself had spoken with Hale. Alien empires began to collapse under fear. Trade routes abandoned, colonies evacuated. Whole sectors fell silent rather than risk drawing dragon fire. Some begged for mercy, sending desperate signals to Earth promising peace, offering tribute. But Earth did not answer, only the dragons did. And their answer was always fire. Jonas stood with Admiral Riker in the command chamber. Reports of destroyed fleets filled the screens. Riker's eyes were dark, his voice calm but heavy. The galaxy trembles, but they must understand. This is not revenge, this is warning. If they strike us again, they will know extinction. Jonas nodded slowly. Yet in his heart he knew the dragons were not simply following orders. They were following hunger. One night, as his dragon rested on a barren moon, Jonas dreamed of its memories again. Visions of an older war, of stars burning, of entire civilizations erased. He woke with sweat on his skin, his voice shaky. How many wars have you fought? How many have you destroyed? The dragon's voice rumbled in his mind. Enough to know this: no one touches humanity without fire answering them. And so the fires spread across stars and systems. The galaxy no longer asked who commanded the dragons. They only asked one question, whispered in fear. How many dragons are there? But no human answered, and no dragon would ever tell. The council trembles. The Galactic Council chamber was once a place of arrogance. Alien leaders spoke with pride, their voices loud, their claws or tendrils striking the air as they mocked weaker worlds. But now the chamber was filled with silence. On every screen played the same images: dragons tearing through fleets, their roars shaking entire battle networks, their fire splitting cruisers in half. The footage came from every corner of space, from miners who recorded shadows above their skies, from traders who saw burning wreckage drift by their ships, from commanders whose last messages ended with a dragon's roar. The council could no longer deny it. The dragons were real, and they were not myths. Some tried to remain defiant. A scaled delegate slammed his claw against the table. We must unite our fleets, crush Earth now before it is too late. But another delegate, pale and trembling, whispered, Unite, yes, but even united, can we truly face them? How do you fight a storm of fire and wings? The oldest delegate in the eye chamber, a frail creature from the long-lived Sarathi, leaned forward, his voice soft but sharp. You do not. You endure. For those are not machines, they are predators, and predators do not bargain with prey. His words spread a heavy silence across the room. Meanwhile, Earth's seat at the council sat empty. Humanity had sent no ambassador, no statement, no explanation, only silence. And in that silence, the council trembled more than if humanity had shouted threats. One delegate muttered, Why do they not speak? Why do they not boast? Another replied, Because they do not need to. Their dragons already speak for them. News networks across the galaxy flooded with panic. Markets collapsed. Entire sectors froze trade. Merchants whispered to one another, If you cross a human route, you may not return. Parents told their children bedtime warnings. Sleep now, or the dragons of Earth will find you. What was once myth had become terror written into daily life. In the war chambers of alien empires, commanders argued over maps. Some demanded strikes against Earth, others demanded retreat, from human space entirely. But the truth pressed down on them all. Every fleet sent against humanity had vanished. Every colony burned had called the dragons. And every dragon strike ended with silence. In hidden corners, whispers began to spread of surrender. Alien voices saying, Perhaps it is better to bow to Earth than to be burned. But bowing meant more than fear. It meant admitting that humanity, once called weak, once mocked as fragile, now held power older than the stars themselves. Back on Earth, Admiral Riker watched the council recordings with cold eyes, his officers waiting for orders. Do we speak to them, sir? One asked. Riker shook his head slowly. No, let them wonder. Let them fear silence more than words, for words can be debated. But silence filled with fire cannot. Jonas sat with Arya and the other dragon pilots in a hidden base. They shared no joy in victory, their faces marked by weight. Jonas finally broke the silence. They think we control the dragons, but I fear the truth is, the dragons control us. Arya nodded, her eyes haunted. We are bound to them, but sometimes when I fight, I feel as if my will is not fully mine. Another pilot whispered. What if the dragons have their own war and we are only the weapons they wield? None spoke after that. For deep in their hearts they knew the bond was not one-sided. The dragons whispered in their dreams, fed them fire, gave them power, but demanded obedience in return. Far across the galaxy, an alien spy intercepted a signal between dragons, not human voices, but the growl of living machines speaking in their own language. The spy brought the recording to his leaders, trembling. They speak to each other, they plan, not humans, but the dragons themselves. The leaders listened, and fear spread across their faces, for in those guttural tones was not chaos, but order, a language of hunters. The council called another emergency meeting, voices cracking with fear. One demanded, "We must ask humanity, how many of these dragons exist?" Another shouted, "We must force them to show us their numbers before we are all burned." But when the question was sent to Earth, no reply came. The silence stretched into days. And in that silence, rumors turned to terror. Some said there were only 20 dragons, others swore there were hundreds, and a few whispered the darkest fear of all. What if there is no number? What if they cannot be counted? The council trembled, the galaxy froze, and still Earth said nothing, only the dragons answered, their roars echoing across the stars. The final roar. The last alien stronghold lay in the Valoran system, a fortress world surrounded by rings of warships, fleets so thick they blotted out stars. Their commanders believed they were untouchable. "This is where humanity's beasts will break," the High Warlord declared, his voice echoing through the halls of his throne ship. "Here the dragons will find their end." But even as he spoke, his soldiers looked uneasy. They had seen the recordings, heard the roars, some whispered in corners, "What if they come here? What if even this fortress is not enough?" And then the shadows arrived. The slipstream tore open like the skin of the universe itself, and from it came wings of fire, a storm of dragons, their scales glowing brighter than suns, their eyes locked with hunger. The fortress shook with alarms, commanders screamed orders, fleets shifted into battle lines, but no order could stop the fear spreading through their ranks. Jonas felt the bond flare inside him, his dragons surging with fire, the memories of Vera burning sharper than ever. He whispered, "This is for them, for all who were lost." And his dragon answered with a roar that shook the system, a roar carried across every comm channel, heard in every ship, every mind, a promise of death. The first wave struck. Dragons dived through the blockade. Plasma storms erupted. Claws tore through shields as if they were cloth. Ships that had stood for centuries broke apart in minutes. Arya's dragon spiraled through. The chaos, her laughter and its roar blending into one, she whispered to her bond, "No fortress can cage us, no fleet can hold us." Her dragon's tail whipped across a battleship, splitting it in half, fire blooming across the void. The warlord's throne ship fired with all its weapons, beams of searing energy cutting through space. Dozens of dragons were struck, but their scales held. They twisted through the storm, responding with fury. One dragon sank its claws into the side of the throne ship, dragging it down toward the planet's atmosphere. Inside, the warlord screamed, "We are the hunters, not them." But his words turned to silence when the dragon's fire consumed his ship, the fortress world watching its ruler vanish in flames. On the surface of Valoran, citizens stared at the sky as it burned. Some fell to their knees, whispering prayers. Others screamed and ran, but none could escape the truth. The dragons had come, and nothing would stop them. Back on Earth, Admiral Riker received the battle feed, his officers cheering, voices raised in triumph, but Riker did not cheer, his eyes heavy. He said quietly, "The galaxy thinks this is victory, but it is only survival, and survival always comes at a cost." The council chamber shook with panic as the news arrived. The fortress of Valoran was gone, its fleets destroyed, its warlord consumed. Delegates shouted over one another, voices filled with terror. "They will not stop," one cried. "They will burn us all." Another screamed, and still Earth sent no words, no ambassadors, only silence. At the ruins of Valoran, the dragons circled the dead world, their wings spreading shadows across the wreckage of fleets. Jonas opened a channel, his voice steady, carried to every system that would hear. Strike our colonies again, and the dragons will come. He ended the transmission. There, no speech, no debate, no promise of peace. Only that single warning. The galaxy froze. The silence heavier than any war. No one dared to speak against Earth again, because they all understood now. Humanity did not need to boast, did not need to threaten. The dragons were their voice, and their voice was fire. That night, Jonas stood outside his dragon, staring into the stars, his heart both heavy and alive. Arya stood beside him, her face lit by the glow of her bond. She whispered, "Do you think they fear us now?" Jonas shook his head. "No, not us. They fear what sleeps inside Earth. They fear what we can wake when pushed too far." The dragons roared one final time, their sound rolling across the system, echoing through every comm, every heart. It was not just a roar of victory, it was a warning, a promise, a truth carved into the galaxy itself. Humanity was no longer prey. Humanity was the hunter, and the dragons would never sleep again.